are diving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello and welcome to Raw Recovery, a Trudging Together podcast. My name is Dion. I'm going to be your host today. We Agnostics. We're at chapter 4 already. And we've learned a lot of great stuff. I apologize. It took me a little while to get to this one. And my grandkids all week. Now the house is silent again. So I can get this done for you. It looks like there's 13 people utilizing it. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for using it. You know, I'm glad that I'm glad that it's helping some people. And the fact that people are coming back and listening means that I'm doing something right. So today we're going to jump into We Agnostics. And I'm going to let you know, I probably understand this chapter the least. And that's because I never really had a hard time with the God concept. I had a harder time with other things. It seems like there's one sticking point for everybody that we need to get over. But let's see what the book has to say about it. This is going to be a God of your understanding. And, you know, I'd also, like to let you know, if you are atheist or agnostic, there are AA meetings out there that are atheist and agnostic based. They're a little bit tougher to find, but they are out there. Okay. So, what we're looking for is just something bigger than ourselves. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 4, We Agnostics. In the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made it clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably an alcoholic. If that may be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritually experienced will conquer. Let's review that real quick. We found out that it isn't really how often you drink. It's what happens to us when we drink. Now, some of us drink a lot. But I know for me, once I took one drink, I became insatiable. My thought process, I could be in a liquor store and wonder if there's enough alcohol. Yep. All right. To the one who feels he is atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible. But to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he's an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on the spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Yeah. In fact, it kind of sucks. I mean, because what we're being given here is kind of an ultimatum. And we really do not like the word ultimatum. I do not. When somebody gives me an ultimatum, I will choose whatever is worst for them. Doesn't matter what happens to me. Not necessarily a good thought process, okay? But if you are the hopeless variety like I am, I'm no longer hopeless or helpless. Okay? But these aren't easy to face. They're not. Okay? But it isn't so difficult. About half our original fellowship were exactly that type. At first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope we were not true alcoholics. But after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life, or else. Perhaps it is going to be that way with you. But cheer up. Something like half of us thought we were atheists or agnostic. Our experience shows that you need not be disconcerted. If a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered a long time ago. There's that recovered word. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us, no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be more. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all of our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. It's true. And we've tried every imaginable remedy. Remember back to the page 21. Remember that page 21. Okay? That we're hopeless. And in my experience, and I've been around for quite some time, in my experience, finding a power greater than yourself is almost imperative. Okay? If you want to lead a joyful, balanced, serene life, okay? If that's what you want. Here we go, lack of power. That was our dilemma. We had to find a power which we could live, but it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how are we to find this power? You know, the weird thing is you know, I was taught at a very young age that that there was a very good chance I had an addictive personality. Okay, I used to think that, but now there's a lot of things. Harder drugs, I stayed away from them. Okay, not that I didn't dabble, I tried them, but you know, I knew what would happen. But when it came to alcohol, I had no willpower at all. None. But so I made a decision that whether I had willpower over it or not, I was going to give it to my higher power. Okay. Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main objective is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problems. I mean, I don't usually stop in the middle. Okay. To solve your problems, not mine. You have different problems than me. You have different needs. You have different wants. You feel different. Your love language is different than mine. Yeah, absolutely. You are a different person. Now, you are not terminally unique. I am not terminally unique, but we are most certainly beautifully unique. And that's where we can find the beauty in grace. That's where we can find the comfort in being our own selves and being us. Okay? That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. I'm not going to put down religion. I will not do it. I used to, but I see where a lot of religious people are right. So I will not do that here. Okay. But we are not a religious group. Okay. And it means that we are going to talk about God. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholic problem and then explain our fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God. For we have reopened a subject which our man thought he had neatly evaded or ignored entirely ignored. We know how he feels. There it is. See, the neat thing about AA is you don't need to explain yourself anymore. We know. We already know. If you want to explain yourself, you go for it. But I found that it was really nice that they just knew what I was talking about and I didn't have to repeat myself. It was so nice. We have shared his honest doubt and prejudice. Some of us have been so violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him which someone had tried to impress them during childhood. Perhaps we rejected this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. With that rejection, we imagined we were abandoned. We imagined we had abandoned the God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. We looked upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claim to be godly. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet, in other moments, we found ourselves thinking, when enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all of this? There was that feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. So for me, I grew up Mormon. Don't hold it against me. My parents did not require us to go to church, but if you grew up in Utah in the 70s, you were going to church. I don't remember much of it. I didn't listen. I'll tell you why. Because I couldn't believe that there was a person out there that was being so mean to his children. I couldn't believe it. I would not go with it. I don't believe in any kind of testing or damning kind of higher power. Not only that, but these people said that they believed in God and that they did these things. Yet when we were outside of church, they treated me horribly. So why would I want to be anything like them? That is where, see, my purview of what God was about was from other people, and it was incorrect. Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. So what we say is stick around and wait for the miracle to happen. But things are going to happen. If you stay sober something like 30 days and you go to meetings every single day, your life is going to change. You're not going to have a choice. Okay? Because the alcohol is no longer in you. You're now having to deal with your feelings. But let me tell you the first thing that's going to happen to you that's going to make you feel like you're totally different. Sorry, I need some talking juice. A good night's sleep. That is the first thing that is going to happen to you that is going to be good. That is going to help you. Yes, because you haven't slept in years. You haven't slept in years. Willingness. Willingness requires no action. It's a decision. And if you're not willing, then the key there is to pray for the willingness, which is a trick in and of itself. All right. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roaming, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. Yeah, your conception of God. Let's cover some of those, and they're gonna go over some of them. Let's see. Karma's bigger than you. Nature's bigger than you. A group of drunks, you can use your AA group. Okay, the group itself, not the individuals. That is group of drunks. That spells out God. I had one sponsee who utilizes love as God. Love is certainly bigger than you. What things are not? A doorknob is not a higher power. Okay? You got to take this seriously. Okay? You have total power over a doorknob. Okay? So, no, a door, in my belief, no, it doesn't work. People that believe in doorknobs don't tend to make it because they're not being serious about the program. Okay? The key is I do not take myself seriously. I take the program seriously. All right. When therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expressions you will find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to affect our first conscious relation with God as we understood Him. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. Okay? So when you get here, you don't trust. Okay? So, but you trust the process. Aha. What is trust? It's belief in something bigger than you. Blind faith, trust. If you can trust the process because you see it working in other people, you're willing. You've made it. You've already made it. Good job. Okay? There doesn't need to be any argument about it. Okay? We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. The cornerstone. Okay, a cornerstone is what you use to build a foundation of a house. You're building a new house. Think of it that way. Steps 1, 2, and 3 are going to be your basement. But that cornerstone is important because some days your cornerstone is going to be the only thing that you have. Okay. This was great news to us, for we had assumed that we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with a spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if only I could believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level. All of mine has been through the educational variety. I have learned over time. Okay? I built trust. I gained courage through trust. My higher power's love language is trust. Besides the seeming inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Many of us have been so touchy that even a casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. So alcohol became the great persuader. And we call that the gift of desperation. And here we are at pain is the touchstone of most change. And in the beginning, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the fear, the guilt, the shame that's kind of driving you because you want to be a better person. Okay? And I'm all for it. What do we call that? We call that a living amends. And a living amends just means that you're going to become a better person each day. Okay? So don't go, if you're new, don't go run around making amends. Just become a better person each day. The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than themselves. We think there are good reasons. Let's have a look at some of them. Have a drink real quick. The practical individual today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without reasonable assumption as a starting point. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? It is constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. To illustrate, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there's an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, we would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. Right there, I have written evolution, so I'm presuming that they're talking about evolution there now. But even then, who knows? I don't know. I have silly ideas, but yeah, they're just silly. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agent spirit, God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostic and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of people in recovery that hide this. Yeah. I'm not talking about AA meeting. Okay. There's sets of people out there that believe that positivity is the way to go. Okay. But positivity won't solve any problems. Okay. They think that they are the Alpha and Omega. What they will do is tell you that there's several different pathways to recovery, but they're going to make you follow theirs. These are cults. Recovery coaches is what I'm talking about. Be careful around them. I'm not saying that there are good recovery coaches, but there's more bad of them than there are good. So be careful. We who travel this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. Yeah. We have learned that whatever human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by sagically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritual-minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of the trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. All right, here's this. You spot it, you got it. All right, didn't I mention earlier, why would I want to be like those people? That is intolerance. That would be intolerance. And I was doing the same thing. I was being intolerant of them also. Okay? They're also talking about, see, when I do that, I cannot see the forest for the trees. All I see is ugly. Okay. And I don't need alcohol in me to do that. I can do it without alcohol. I can look at this world and make it ugly if I want to. Okay. But I love it. I love being able to see clearly now. My life is so much simpler. Problems that come across my plate, I can work with now. In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of the power greater, which is greater than himself. Whether we agree with that particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that these are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. They are questions for each individual to settle for himself. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than themselves. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous and humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record. Here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of total failure of their human resources, they found a new power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction flowed into them. This happens soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God today is the most powerful, is the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. So right here, they found a new power, peace, and happiness. This is some of the promises. Okay. Thousands of men and women. It's hundreds of thousands now, and they're not wrong. Millions of alcoholics are not wrong. And now that we have figured out that we are not terminally unique, now that we know that we are not terminally unique, and we know that we're one of these hopeless people, then I think maybe it's time to put ourselves in the center of the herd. Now, when they say that God today is the most important fact of their lives, let me tell you something about that. I am grateful to be an alcoholic. Yes, I said it. I am grateful to be an alcoholic. Why? Because I love God that much. I love God being in my life. I love my higher power being in my life that much. And I can't think of any other reason that I would have thought of other than my alcoholism. And that's why. This world of ours has made more material progress in the last century than in all millenniums which went before. Almost everyone knows the reason. Students of ancient history tell us that the intellect of those men in those days was equal to the best of today. I'm going to pause right there. We are not any smarter. I'm going to tell you something. We are not any smarter than they were 80 years ago. Okay? Alcoholism has not morphed into something else, and neither has the solution. Okay? The solution hasn't changed either. Yet in ancient times, material progress was painfully slow. The spirit of modern scientific inquiry, research, and invention was almost unknown. In the realm of the material, men's minds were fettered by superstition, tradition, and all sorts of fixed ideas. Some of the contemporaries of Columbus thought a round earth preposterous. Others came near to putting Galileo to death for his astronomical heresies. And now these are normal things. Okay? Think about the internet. You don't know how the internet works. Okay? You don't know how the internet works. But the moment it goes down, oh, everybody knows. Everyone knows. If you are the ruler of the internet, if you're the one that takes care of the internet in the house, and it goes down, you are going to know about it. Am I right? It is because we live in a world, we live in the microwave age where we want everything on instant minute. Here comes delayed gratification. Okay? Your internet is a sort of faith. You rely on it. You rely on it. Makes your life more convenient. Okay? Let me tell you something. Convenience equals control. All right. We ask ourselves this: are not some of us just as biased and unreasonable about the realm of the spirit as were the ancients about the realm of the material? Even in the present century, American newspapers were afraid to print the account of the Wright brothers' first successful flight at Kitty Hawk. Had not all other efforts at flight failed before? Did not Professor Langley's flying machine go to the bottom of the Potomac River? Was it not true that the best mathematical minds had proved man could never fly? Had not people said God had reserved this privilege to the birds? Only 30 years later, the conquest of air was almost an old story, and airplane travel was in full swing. But in most fields, our generation has witnessed complete liberation of our thinking. Show any longshoreman a Sunday supplement describing a proposal to explore the moon by means of a rocket, and he will say, I bet they'd do it. Not so long either. Is not our age characterized by the case with which we discard old ideas for new, by the complete readiness with which we throw away the theory or gadget which does not work for something new which does? We do this quite often. Your phones. Oh, I need the new phone. I need a smartphone so that I can keep up with the Joneses. This is keeping up with the Joneses here. We always throw out old ideas for new ones. Should be very careful on how we do this, for alcohol is a subtle foe. Good way to be on that is always check your intentions. Just always check, Dion, why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing it because I want to help some people. Okay. Are you getting some vicarious pleasure out of it? Not really. Okay, we can do it. Here we go. We had to ask ourselves, why shouldn't we apply our human problems with the same readiness to change our point of view? Here we are. Here come the bedevilments. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We could not seem to be of real help to other people. Was not the basic solution of these bedevilments more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course it was. When we saw others solve their problems by simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. So, all of my best ideas got me to AA, period. All my best ideas got me drunk. Every time. Okay? I had to find something else. Okay? I could not look into my wife's eyes anymore. I couldn't look her in the eye anymore. Because if I did, I would see the pain. The Wright brothers' almost childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostic and atheists were sticking to the idea that self-sufficiency would solve our problems. When others showed us that the God sufficiently worked with them, we began to feel like those who had insisted the Wrights would never fly. Logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw conclusions. That is one of man's magnificent attributes. We agnostically inclined would not feel satisfied with a proposal which does not lend itself to reasonable approach and interpretation. Hence, we are at pains to tell why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it is more sane and logical to believe than not to believe. When we say our former thinking was soft and mushy, when we threw up our hands at doubt and said, we don't know. When we became alcoholics, crushed by self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that God is either everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? So I take this like a pregnancy. You're either pregnant or you're not. You either believe in God or you don't. There's no middle of the road. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that you need to jump all the way on board and no, put your toe in, man. It's okay. I understand. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. It feels like a lot of people are being rushed through the program. You know, having a personal relationship with a higher power than yourself takes time. And if you rush that, you're going to miss some of the forest, man. You're going to miss some of it. We don't want that for you. Okay? Arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. We couldn't duck the issue. Some of us had already walked far over the bridge of reason toward the desired shore of faith. The outlines and the promise of a new land had brought luster to tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. Friendly hands had stretched out in welcome. We were grateful that reason had brought us so far, but somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we did not like to lose our support. Part of it for me was this. Being told I had to be a man. Being told, just grow a pair and these different things that we had to. I was told what it meant to be a man, and it was absolutely incorrect. Okay. Do I believe in masculinity? Absolutely, I do. It's needed in some points. Okay. So I thought doing that, I was told that when I put dependence on other things or other people, that you're just weak. And I found out that that was wrong. I'm going to tell you, I'm glad I was wrong. Because I have found a strength and a courage I didn't know existed. Yeah. Sure. I have very, very strong boundaries. I know who I am. I know my snakes. Right? That was natural. So see, you weren't wrong. You were just following what you thought you knew, man. That was natural. But let us think a little more closely. Without knowing it, have we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith? For did we not believe in our own reasoning? Did we not have confidence in our ability to think? What was that but a sort of faith? Yes, we have been faithful, objectively faithful to the God of reason. So in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time. We found, too, that we have been worshipers. What a state of mental gooseflesh that used to bring on. Have we not variously worshipped people, sentiments, things, money, and ourselves? And then with better motive, have we not worshipfully beheld the sunset, the sea, or a flower? Who of us has not loved something or somebody? How much did these feelings, these loves, these worships have to do with pure reason? Little or nothing, we saw at last. Were not these things the tissue out of which our lives were constructed? Did not these feelings, after all, determine the course of our existence? It was impossible to say that we had no capacity for faith or love or worship. In one form or another, we have been living by faith and little else. Woo! Uh-oh. Uh-oh, May. We're seeing things a little differently now, right? I did have faith in myself. I had faith in my actions and things like that. So my life is a lot more faith-based than I thought it was when I got here. What does that mean? It means you're ahead of the game a little bit. So good job. That means that you had it, you were using it wrong. That was all. That was all. Imagine life without faith. Lord, nothing left but pure reason. It wouldn't be life. But we believed in life. Of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. Yet there it was. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons, created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on to a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that, at least so the chemist said. Hence, we saw that reason isn't everything. Neither is reason, as most of us use it, entirely dependable, though it emanate from our best minds. What about people who prove that man could never fly? Okay. So visual proof is the least, isn't necessarily the worst proof, but it's the least of the proofs. See, when you go through something that is arduous and you use a higher power and you come out of it unscathed, it will bring you more courage. Then it'll bring you more faith to be able to do it again the next time, because you're going to need it. There will be times in your life when you will have to summon all the willpower that you have to move forward. Yes, I said willpower. Okay. Yet we have been seeing another kind of flight, a spiritual liberation from this world. People who rose above their problems. They said God made these things possible and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release, but liked to tell ourselves it wasn't true. Or this is what I thought, or that it wasn't for me. Because I wasn't allowed to have it. Because of da. These are just lies I told myself so that I would be trapped in my insane head. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man themselves. When we finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as we've been feeling, just as the feelings we had for a friend, sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In that last analysis, it was only there that he may be found. It was so with us. We can only clear the ground a little bit if our testimony helps you sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself. If you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. Okay, so what am I doing right now? I'm clearing the ground a little bit. That's all. It's all I can do. From there, I'm giving you away my testimony, and I hope that gets away some of your prejudice and make you think honestly. I'd like to encourage you to search diligently. So jump on the broad highway with me. There's a bunch of us there. Jump on the broad highway with me. Join me in this search for the truth. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. I know that for a fact because I've been having a lot of fun doing it. In this book, you will read the experience of a man who thought he was an atheist. His story is so interesting. Some of it should be told now. His change of heart was dramatic, convincing, and moving. Now, before I go on, let's remember there are two types of spiritual experience. There's a sudden upheaval of things and displacements of attitudes. And then there's the other 95% of us who get it in the educational variety slowly over a period of time. Our friend was a minister's son. He attended church school where he became rebellious of what he thought an overdose of religious education. For years after, he was dogged by trouble and frustration, business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. Post-war delusionment, ever more serious alcohol, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction. Post-war delusionment is PTSD. That's what we call it now. Okay. One night, when confined in a hospital, what kind of alcoholic is there? One that's confined. He was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience. Our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." Later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question: is it possible that all the religious people I have known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came to him and crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? Yeah, who am I to decide this? Yeah, that I'm the Alpha Omega, that what I do and say is the beginning and the end, and you will do what I say, and this world will be a better place. And if I was president, I'd have this thing straight. Yeah, okay. This man recounts that he tumbled out of bed to his knees in a few seconds. He was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God. It poured over and through him with a certainty and majesty of a great tide of flood. The barriers he had built through the years swept away. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He had stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. For the first time. And he was, he was a minister's son. Thus was our friend's cornerstone fixed in place. There's that cornerstone again. Okay? No later vicissitude has shaken it. Vicissitude means bad things happening in life. His alcoholic problem was taken away that very night. Years ago, it disappeared. Save for a few brief moments of temptation, the thought of drink has never returned. And at such times, a great revulsion has risen up in him. Seemingly, he could not drink even if he would. God had restored his sanity. Sometimes I see other people drinking on TV or whatever, and my stomach goes, ugh. I feel like I'm going to throw up because it reminds me, I did not like the taste of alcohol. I did not like the taste of alcohol. Okay? So why was it for years when I thought of alcohol, my mouth would water? Still does it here and there. What is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his maker. Then he knew. Simple, simple, simple. Keep it simple. Okay? Here's a rule. If it's not simple, it's not recovery. If it's not simple, it's not recovery. There's nothing easy here. Okay? We don't do easy. We don't necessarily do hard either. We just do what we're supposed to do. Even so, God has restored us all to our right minds. I've been restored to sanity. I'm what is called a recovered alcoholic. That means I've done the steps. I've been restored to something like sanity. It means I have soundness of mind. I am not cured of alcoholism. There is no cure for alcoholism. The only thing that I can guarantee is total abstinence. Okay? To this man, the revelation was sudden. Some of us grow into it more slowly, but he has come to all who have honestly sought him. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. Okay. So when you draw near, open-mindedness is going to be the key here. This is going to be the principle. Open-mindedness is going to be the principle. Okay? We have to stop hating religion. Now, that doesn't mean that suddenly you need to start seeing where everybody is right. You don't need to do that. Okay? What you're doing is you're looking for something for you, and it's personal. I have found in my experience that my higher power was my first successful relationship. And it made me feel special because it was just between me and them. I kid you not. And now I live a very, very beautiful life. Sometimes it's arduous. Sometimes it's filled with joy. But it's always beautiful. Because now I get to see the forest for the trees. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Next one will be how it works. I will only be going to page 63. So we will have one more session with this. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I certainly hope this is helping you. It's helping me, keeps me sober. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. Peace out and have a day.